Thank you and good evening to everyone. I'll try and see if I can make my presentation a wee bit quicker so that we try and catch up on time. So I usually try and make it a little interactive, but I think I'll cut that down. And in my talks, I usually find people furiously scribbling notes. My request is you don't need to do it because the presentation, a small web-based tutorial, and a handout are all there on my website. So if you pay 100% attention, when you go through any of those, you're going to learn everything much quicker than this, okay? So can I have complete attention while I'm doing this, because I'm sure that will make a big difference to you. So I head this QMed Knowledge Foundation, which is a 4-year-old trust that I set up with a couple of other doctors and librarians, and I'll tell you a little about our advocacy and other activities at the end. What I will do in this presentation is I'm going to give you a little bit of theory about resources which you know pretty well, but when you come to searching, you'll apply it in a much more logical way about which resource you go to for a search, depending on your context of searching. The main crux of the talk will be the tips on searching PubMed. I'm going to tell you 5 key tips which are becoming a big hit as I'm teaching these to people. And this has come out of several years of many such talks. And maybe I should take a minute to thank with gratitude every person in the audience who's given me a blank look, because even yesterday when I did one, I got a blank look. I made a change today. So you'll get the benefit of that change. The last is a tiny introduction to the Cochrane Library and a resource called UpToDate. Each of these has other alternatives as well, but I'll just give you a tiny introduction. So, part 1, the little theory about concepts of information resources. I classify them into broadly 3 types, and whether this is in print or CD or internet doesn't matter. Okay? So the first one, background, factual information. These are all resources you've all studied to become doctors. So background is all your textbooks. Factual information is, say, medical dictionaries, MIMS, SIMS, drug resources, anything where you've quickly looked up some fact. So this is something we are not going to touch upon because you've been through all these. Okay. Second type, the core thing, which is about current research and past research, which can go back decades. So all of you would know I'm talking about journals. Then we have databases like PubMed, which help you search what is published in so many journals, and there are alternate databases as well. I'm going to, based on this, teach you, as I said, 5 tips on PubMed. The theory behind that will really help you search most other databases as well. The third kind is where you get answers to questions. Many of you are clinicians, so you're facing this patient had this, etc. How do I handle that? So that is based on the literature review of the type 2, and that is what has become Cochrane reviews or evidence summaries and UpToDate, stuff like that. Okay? So this is the small bit about information resources, and let me see if I can have a quick bit of answers here. Tell me if I would go to type 1 or type 2 or type 3 in each of these. So if I want information on the rise in incidence of diabetes, what kind of resources would I first turn to? I want type 1 or 2 or 3? 2, great. This one? 1. Great. Fill in the blank with any drug. 1 or 2, okay. This one? 3, great. 1, because any standard ophthal text would give it to you. Again, 1. So this is an approach I'd like you to have, because it's not, should I use PubMed or UpToDate or MD Consult? Each of them is either 1 or 2 or 3. So you've got to decide. Each of them has different features, different coverage. That's a different issue. But first, you've got to get very clear on this. Okay? So let's move on to the type 2 resources, which are journal articles and articles that you trace through popularly PubMed. Most journals have one or more of these kinds of articles. We are aware of all this, letters to the editor, editorials, opinions, etc. But when it comes to research base, let's take an example of something like this. You've got 5 articles in several journals that you've searched, favoring one intervention, 5 favoring the other, and you're back to this. This is when you need the type 3 resources, which are meta-analysis, systematic reviews, or evidence summaries. So where do we find all these? These are all compiled in something called an evidence pyramid. So this, whatever I'm showing you, is something you're all aware of. RCTs are level 1. Further down, you have the different kinds of studies. Many journals cover one or more of all these kinds of studies. Some journals are more specialized towards RCTs and cohort studies and will not take case reports, stuff like that. These, you've got to understand the nuances of each journal to decide which kind of journal you're going to read. But very specifically, it is the level 1 evidence that is taken to create evidence analysis and summaries. So what are the information resources we go to? Okay. For systematic reviews and meta-analysis, the best resource is the Cochrane summaries. I'm using the word systematic reviews from the Cochrane library because the Cochrane library itself has 6 databases. The most important one being the Cochrane reviews. That has the best of systematic reviews. PubMed, Embase. Embase is a similar database covering more of European journals, but it's not even free to search, leave alone full text. But it's good to know about it. These cover all the other levels of evidence kinds of studies. Cochrane library, there are 2 more databases which cover RCTs. There's one called Central, which covers only RCTs, and Central as well as one called Methodology Studies cover cohort studies as well. So this way, if you know you're looking for these kinds of studies, go to those databases. These are the URLs of the 2 resources. And with that brief background on the kinds of information resources and where you go for them, I'm moving on to the second part, which is the 5 key tips that I teach as an introduction to use PubMed. Based on this, if you go online to the PubMed tutorial or attend some of our advanced programs or register for some more that we have, you can learn a lot more in detail. But this fundamental becomes the real building block to it. Okay? So the first 2, I'm going to start with questions that I have here. So if I did a search wanting articles on epilepsy in infants, so I either put epilepsy in infants or epilepsy and infants, which I found has been the most common method of searching. One of several results I got was this. The title very clearly doesn't seem to say that the article is going to cover epilepsy at all, though it's about children. If I get into the abstract, you'll see that the word epilepsy comes here, and that is why this was one of the results that I got. So the key tip here is, if you just use words or keywords as you call them, you will get results about your topic as well as results where the words are just there. And what's interesting is in all my tutorials, people tell me, yes, we knew it, but they've all done searching this way. Based on this, point 2. Okay? So if I did a search saying Wilson is a name, so I'm going to get articles written by Wilson. I've got these 70,000 results, but the very first one is not written by Wilson. Now, based on tip 1, we know the answer. The abstract or the address field could have the word Wilson. It could be on Wilson's disease or maybe some Wilson's Institute of something, and that's why it has come in. So the simple tip here is you can say, I want Wilson only as an author. Many of you might say, of course we know this, but there's more to this as well. Okay. So the tip is that if your information resource, in this case, because it's a bibliographic database, it's just a database of articles, every article is structured. It has an author, title, date of publication, etc. You can restrict your search to a particular field. For example, if I put the full phrase lumbar disc herniation and say TI, I mean I want the complete phrase in the title, and you can see it's highlighted in each of the results. Okay, just pay attention to my wording, full phrase, because I'm going to have an example where this will make a difference. Whereas if I just put in those words, in the previous case I got 664, here I've got 5,000 something. So there will be a lot of articles on lumbar disc herniation, but I'll get a lot more where the 3 words are scattered and it may be on some completely different herniation and different disc, etc. These are the various fields you can search for, and there are lots more than this actually, but for a starter I'm just giving the very common fields that people can use. So if I say hepatology, JOUR, I want articles only from the journal Hepatology, okay, that kind of thing. Very often we are combining more than one thing. I want articles in hepatology published in 2010. So I say hepatology, JOUR and 2010 DP, which is year of publication or date of publication. You're combining more than one topic or aspect that you're looking for. So when you combine, you've got to use these terms and, or not. And this thing has to be understood very carefully because it's a great source of confusion pretty often. If I put in PubMed hip surgery and knee surgery, I want only this common area, that is where articles cover compulsorily both the surgeries. Whereas if I speak to you in English and say, can you give me articles on hip surgery and knee surgery, you'll give me everything possible. So it's an opposite use really. I don't want everything on hip and knee surgery. I want those articles that compulsorily cover both. So and compulsory, you need to remember that. If I say hip surgery or knee surgery, it means anything or combination. So hip surgery alone, knee surgery alone, or the combination. In English, if I say or, you'd give me only one of them. So the opposite usage of common English. Hip surgery, not knee surgery, you're completely eliminating knee surgery. There are a lot more nuances in this, but I'll leave you with this. My website and handouts will give you more details. Okay. So how would I combine these with the fields? Can anyone answer this one quickly? Yes, SHA AU, spine JOUR, and perfect, right? This one. Now we are combining 3 things. So what we do is antibiotics. This is a simple part I'm doing. Antibiotics TI and pregnancy TI or lactation TI. What more have I done? I've put pregnancy or lactation in round brackets. Just remember a rule, wherever there's a longer string and you're using or, combine that, enclose those in a round bracket. Otherwise what PubMed would do is first combine antibiotics and pregnancy, make a set, that or everything in lactation. So remember the rule very simply as wherever there's or, put a round bracket. Still more complex. Why have I separated this? I have not said general anesthesia or epidural anesthesia. I said general or and anesthesia title. I gave you a clue in an earlier slide. Okay, I'll give in the answer here. If I said general anesthesia, I'm asking for those two words together. And the next slide will show you what will happen if I had done that. Okay. So again, I've put the ors in round brackets and I've done this combination. So I want the words general or epidural in the title. I definitely want anesthesia in the title. And I again definitely want knee or hip in the title. A title search is not the best search, but it's a very quick way of getting quick list of references. Now just watch the result page. The very first one says general versus epidural. If I had said general anesthesia, I would have lost this first one. Okay, so these are certain small nuances that will come out of practice. Now, I just finished saying that if we use only a title search, you're not going to get everything. Let's take an example. This is a snapshot of a journal article from the original journal. The title of the article is Update in Geriatric Medicine, and the author's keywords are geriatrics, hip arthritis, osteoporosis, etc. This record, if I see it in PubMed, the title is there. There is no abstract, like many articles in PubMed don't have abstracts. So if I did a TI search on osteoarthritis, I'm not going to get this one. Even if I did TIAB, which is title abstract, I'm not going to get this one. I could miss out such articles if I just did a TIAB search. That's a very good thing for a quick reading list. If I want to find everything, what do we really need then? Okay. Suppose it had an additional field, something like this, that these are the keywords about, just like the author had given keywords. Then we could probably have used a real keyword search field. What PubMed really has is, if you click this word mesh terms, you actually get a list of keywords that describe the article, and these are much more detailed than the author's keywords in the journal. Okay? You just have to click that word mesh terms and you get these. So what is the corollary? If you do osteoporosis TI, you get osteoporosis in the title. Same way, if you do osteoporosis mesh, and mesh stands for medical subjects headings, which actually means descriptive keywords about the article. So if you did osteoporosis mesh, this is what happens, and the articles that you get are about osteoporosis, just like the one we saw, Update in Geriatric Medicine, though the word is not there in the title. So that seems easy. Put anything, put mesh, article will be about it. But the reality is these mesh terms are actually in a database and they are very well controlled at the National Library of Medicine where this is done. I'll show you how they are controlled. Okay. So let's go on to the fourth tip. How do we search using mesh? Okay. On the PubMed homepage, we have a mesh database. So if you click there, you're searching the mesh database to find the most appropriate term which would describe your information need. For example, if I want articles on pregnancy-induced diabetes, I want to find out what is the best term I use. So I feed that in, I click search. I've got a term, diabetes gestational. Sounds fine, right? Every term has a small description, and if you just take a moment to read the first two lines, it says this term is used to describe articles where it is diabetes induced by pregnancy and resolved at the end. Fine, perfect. It does not include previously known diabetics who become pregnant. For them, the term you use is pregnancy in diabetes. So it can be as specific as this. So when you search, find the best mesh term and then use it to search. Okay. So if what we want is gestational diabetes, we found this one. What we can do right here, we don't have to go back to the main PubMed page. We click this Add to Search Builder button. When we do that, it feeds in the term here, diabetes gestational mesh in that square bracket. And then if you click search PubMed, we get the PubMed page, diabetes gestational mesh, just like we could have done osteoporosis TI. This happens, and we've got these 5,000 odd references. I'll just go back again here. I could also choose subheadings here. So if I choose something like, say, drug therapy, I'll get articles only on drug therapy of gestational diabetes. Here what it would do is diabetes gestational, it would put a slash and say drug therapy. It will be as specific. You can combine more terms as well that way. So we've got these 5,000 odd, but if we had just put in pregnancy-induced diabetes, can we see the number that we have? Almost double. And you can see that there'll be a lot of irrelevant stuff as well. And this is why we waste so much time going through page 1, 2, 3. Okay, itna mil gaya, chalo, let's manage with it. The last tip, very simple one. The mesh is the only complex one. And yes, what I've shown you is the tip of the iceberg. There's lots more to learn in that. But if you understand the concept, then the learning is much, much quicker. Okay. This one comes in useful. I think during today you might have seen slides where references were there at the end. All of them don't give the complete reference always. We see that when we read journal articles, see cross references. So if we want to locate those studies, very often we get stuck saying, oh, I don't have the whole reference. Sometimes you've noted down something, you've made a mistake, or you've not taken it down fully. Let's see what we can do in PubMed. Okay. So a reference like this. We don't have the full title. We don't have the name of the journal. We are not sure whether 177 is volume or page. Again, the home page. There's a link to something called single citation matcher. Okay. Sounds easy now. So feed in whatever you know. Landers JA, the first two title words, year, take a guess, 177 is first page, and click go, and here we are. If we had fed it in volume, it would say nothing found. You come back and do this. So we have the full reference. There are features in PubMed that help you become lazier still. If you have to copy this as your cross-reference, click this, choose summary text, click apply. You've got it in a citation format. You may have to do minor editing depending on the instructions to authors, what all they tell you to add, not to add. But rest of it is accurate here. So just a recap of the 5 tips. The first one is if you just search using words, you're going to get a lot of junk. The second is memorize the fields and use them as often as possible. And the best tip there is if you want a quick reading list, just do TI. TI searches using the right Boolean operators, you get a quick reading list. Boolean operators and compulsory or either separate or together. Not means you're eliminating something. The mesh search gets you the highest relevance. In a database like Embase, you have something called an M tree, which has the same principles as mesh, and you'll find this in several databases. And the single citation matcher. Now, based on the single citation matcher, I'd like to share with you a very interesting example. Okay, I got this reference from an editor who had this as one of the cross references that was submitted to him with an article. And he called me up and said, I just read this. I'm sure it's wrong. Can you verify it for me? I usually ask for guesses, but again, I'm not going to do that now. His hunch was a journal title called New Technology Journal Biomedical Material Research sounds wrong in itself. It's worse if it is 1953, and it's still worse if that is volume 23, because volume 1 should have been 1930. So it sounds like it's complete fake. So he said, could you verify this for me? So obviously the single citation matcher wouldn't work in such things. So I went to our good old Google and I got 2 options here. What was I looking for? If I went into the option, where was I going to be looking for it? Any guesses? The two which I've circled are articles. So once I clicked and got the article, where would I be looking for this? No. I was going to look at the cross-reference. Has somebody else used this cross-reference from which this particular submitting author has just copied it? So what happened? I've still put the fake reference up there. Pay attention to cross-reference 29 and 30 that's here. 30 has the author scales JT, materials for hernia repair. Copy pasting may be gadbad hai, that's the point. The new technology is part of the article title in number 29. It's not the journal title. Can you see the line of divide that I've put in? So that was part of the article title. The real journal was Journal Biomedical Material Research. 1953 from here, 23 etc. from here. Okay, so there are pretty quick techniques to catch any kind of copying, pasting, plagiarism, etc. Okay, so that's the message that I had. So that was about the real simplest basic key tips on searching. I promise you that if you really remember these 5 and try in other places, you'll be better than what you were doing earlier. I'm not saying you're going to become a champ with that because there's lots more to do, but you'll definitely waste a little less time than you've been wasting. And I move on to part 3 because I really want to highlight again about when you go to what kind of resources. The first type I don't need to talk about. You've all done all of that to do your MBBS, MD, MS, whatever degrees. Part 3, where I'm introducing these 2 resources. There are more of them, of course. These are typically what you go to either find evidence. You go here first, or if you're a practitioner, you're going to look for what can I do today to treat patients. Of course, you're going to look for evidence even then. So it is scenario based. Cochrane reviews. Can I have a show of hands as to how many of you think it is free? That's about 10 hands, I guess. Okay. Yeah. It's free to us in India because ICMR has paid for a countrywide license. So as long as you're sitting inside the India map territory, whether you're in a cyber cafe or your home or anywhere, you can access Cochrane reviews completely free. Remember that it's our taxpayers' money going out, so you've also paid your share for it. So please use it. Okay. What is a Cochrane review? It's a systematic review, which means the authors who have written it on any topic, is this drug better than that, or is this treatment recommended for this condition? Those are all answers to specific scenarios. They have to find every available RCT on that and do a thorough meta-analysis and a bias-free reporting. I'll give you one quick example on bias-free reporting. So suppose they've located 7 RCTs and 2 of them did not mention clearly how the blinding was done. These authors will contact those trial authors and ask them, can you tell me how you did the blinding? If they get the answer and they're satisfied, they will say, we checked, we got it, we are happy with it. So the non-bias level is higher. If they didn't get an answer, they will say possibility of bias, so grading is lower. This is the level of systematic reporting that happens in a Cochrane review compared to a regular review article, which is more of an overview. And that's why that comes at that top of the evidence pyramid. Okay. So typically, a quick look at what an average Cochrane review looks like. I've just done a search for back pain, rest, activity. This is a word search, but because we don't have 20 million Cochrane reviews like we have in PubMed as articles including letters to the editor, etc., we're going to get very few Cochrane reviews, and a word search, even if it gets some junk, it's easy to eliminate. So I've got 9 Cochrane reviews that contain these words. I've got 2 other systematic reviews and 43 clinical trials. I'm looking only for Cochrane reviews here. The very first one says advice to rest in bed versus advice to stay active for acute low back pain and sciatica. So that sounds very much what we need. If I click that one, the abstract will be a structured abstract where the conclusion will very clearly tell you, is it favoring rest, is it favoring staying active, or is it non-conclusive? So even the abstract alone tells you that, because you know the nature of the whole study, that it is done in a very thorough systematic way, that itself gives you an answer at the first level. Beyond that, if you click the figures area, I'm just showing you one outcome meta-analysis here. The outcome here is functional state at 12 weeks. Okay. How this meta-analysis is depicted, this is called a forest plot. So you have this line here. These are 2 studies for acute low back pain, 2 for sciatica, and this black diamond represents the meta-analysis. Everything is on the side of favors stay active, even though it may be touching this line, but by and large, majority is on this side. So I'm just giving you a very quick interpretation here. This could be looked at for several outcomes. Of course, reading the review and getting more details is always good, but even this much gives you a quick scenario of the evidence. However, many Cochrane reviews are non-conclusive because they're they want to be very sure of giving you what is right evidence. So in the absence, you've still got to treat your patient. You have sources. I've just taken one of them up to date because I happen to have a password as a trainer and I can take different subjects to show them, etc. There are other resources like Dynamed and BMJ Evidence Plus, several of these. Today, everyone's realized that everyone doesn't have time to read huge number of journal articles, do an analysis, and that's why these summaries, these products have all come in the last 20 years or so. So up to date, the whole summary will look like a textbook chapter, but it's not meant to be a textbook. It's meant to give you a quick recap and to give you evidence and to give you guidelines for treating. So it summarizes information from every author, has to look up these Cochrane reviews, guidelines, everything, and write the summary, plus recommend a grading. So if I have a topic like this is a disease topic, pneumococcal pneumonia in children, you will find type 1 kind of information like introduction, pathogenesis, epidemiology, etc. But as you go further down, you will have recommendations for treatment, guidelines, etc. and everything. If you see the introduction, pathogenesis, they are tiny paragraphs, but everything is properly referenced. And that's why you know they've taken it from the right resources. So it becomes a very quick, this is pretty popular in US and all that, even right at the patient's bedside. Residents quickly read up, make sure they're doing the right thing and handle it this way. Here's a drug topic on the same lines. Again, it'll give you things like brand names, safety issues, all those are type 1 bits of information, but the rest of it is finally a complete analysis. So, my message here is literature searching is really the foundational basis of anything that you do, whether you're a medical teacher, whether you're a student going to do your thesis, whether you're a practitioner, whether you're a researcher. And unfortunately, we find that very often this is just Google, pick up something, put in something. And I simply have to share that pretty often I have PGs ringing me up and saying, ma'am, I have to submit my dissertation in the next week. Can I have the references for filling it in? That's definitely not the right time to only get references. It's not something to just be filled up there. So the message here is where to go. If it is for answers, by and large, if you're a practitioner, you'll go to type 3 resources first. If you don't get them or you've got to stay updated, type 2 resources. You've got to do it right using this right search techniques. And as I said, a word about our foundation. This is what we do. We are a very small team, but we have a very large goal. We want to work with institutions and individuals to make this change about how they do literature searches, how they do referencing. We want to help libraries offer much better services with full text, with interlibrary loans, etc., etc. We have a long way to go, but we really like to sensitize every audience about this because we would like cooperation from everyone for this. This is our website, and if you just scroll down there, the Introduction to Literature Searching is a web-based tutorial. Inside that, you also have a link to my presentation as well as a quick handout that you can print out and use. And we are also on Facebook. You get a good lot of updates there as well. And if you just note down our website address, you'll get everything else from there. Okay. Thank you very much.